63% of all pregnancy terminations in America happen through medication, not through procedures. A group of doctors tried to make these medication abortions illegal, but the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that they cannot do that on technical grounds, but future administrations can still impose a ban on such medications. So let's talk about it. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. David Berger, a board-certified pediatrician in Tampa, owner and medical director for Holistic Pediatrics and Family Care. The focus of my practice is on medical choice, all things related to a person's individual right to decide what is best for themselves, whether it comes to how they eat and what they drink, to how they treat themselves from a reproductive health perspective, to vaccines, etc. And this is an area that I've been really focusing on to make sure that women have a right to choose what they think is in the best for their reproductive health. Now, I do believe that this is ultimately a choice that a person makes, and that people shouldn't be involved in that except for the person, the couple, the doctor that they're going to be consulting with. Now, if you aren't already a subscriber on this YouTube channel, please do so. Notify yourselves when new videos are posted. Please like this video as well and share with others. And if you're not already supporting us on Patreon, please do so, where in addition to getting early access to videos, you can also see our education station where I have access to my protocols from a holistic perspective that usually are reserved just for my patients. Now, abortion itself is certainly a very sensitive topic for many women, okay? Now, of course, there are some women who end up terminating pregnancy under very difficult circumstances. They may have a health issue. For instance, like say a blocked or a pregnancy that occurs within the fallopian tube, not down in the uterus. It could be that there are other reasons that could lead to a mother's life being potentially jeopardized, or that the fetus itself was not viable, was not going to be able to survive. And that's certain things that medical tests, etc., can show. Now, of course, there are some women who didn't choose to get pregnant through whether rape, deception, etc. And of course, sometimes there could just be an accident where a condom didn't work. No birth control is 100%, but ultimately, people should have a right to make a decision on what they're going to do with their life and with their body. Now, I also do realize that some people are dead fast against abortion because of their their religious or their personal beliefs, and a lot of that has to do with when they believe that life begins. And of course, that itself is a very controversial topic, and many of us don't believe that life begins at conception, but further along, sometimes even believing that life is truly not beginning until the first breath of life. Now, of course, one of the biggest issues is that women feel that they are losing their ability to control their own reproductive health. Their choices are being taken away from them. Now, we're talking today specifically about different types of abortions that can be done. And in particular, this medical form. But first, I want to explain other types of abortions. So early in pregnancy, usually in the first trimester, there is something most typically done called a suction vacuum aspiration abortion. Again, this is if medical is not used. It's typically done before 14 weeks. It's the same day, in and out, where they'll insert a narrow flexible tube into the uterus, and then there's a suction that basically pulls out all the pregnancy contents. Further along, usually in the second trimester, there's what's called a dilatation and evacuation. So people hear DNCs, but this is most commonly, again, done in the second trimester. The cervix is dilated first because more has to be pulled out, and so to be sparing of the cervix, make sure that there's no damage. There are things that can be done to open up the cervix some to allow the passage better. And then both vacuuming, but also some scraping may be needed in order to remove all the pregnancy contents. Now, medical abortion. As I said, this is the overwhelming majority way it is done in America, and this is typically done up till 12 weeks of gestation, where there is a taking of oral pills, one that's called mifepristone, and what this does is it blocks progesterone's action. Now, progesterone is called this because it promotes gestation, and it is necessary for the uterus, the placenta, to continue to grow and to allow and to facilitate the growth of the fetus. Now, it basically stops the pregnancy from progressing, but this is the particular medicine that they're trying to ban. even though it was approved 24 years ago. It's been a very commonly used medication, not just for this, but for other reasons as well. For 24 years, and it's been considered a rather safe thing to be doing. It's there are more side effects that are associated with antibiotic reactions and such. Now, there's also a second medication that is done. It's called misoprostol, and what this does is it causes the uterus to contract, to bleed, and to expel the pregnancy. It's kind of like similar to what the body would naturally do during a miscarriage. Now, in terms of the recent cases regarding the judgments regarding the medical abortions. So what happened was originally anti-abortion doctors sought a ruling that would be applied nationwide, asking the judge to find that the FDA falsely and wrongly approved the use of the mifepristone. Okay, and so they were saying they did it wrong 24 years ago. Now they should pull it back for everybody, which of course I can see why a lot of people have a problem with that. Now, this federal district judge who they brought the case to agreed, and then put into a place a ban of these medications, of which that was then kind of blocked in the meantime. But what happened most recently is that the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that these anti-abortion doctors, they couldn't do that simply because they don't have standing, meaning that it was declared that on legal grounds they didn't have anything that justified them bring forth the case, because the Supreme Court said that they didn't demonstrate how they themselves, those doctors, would be injured by allowing the drug to be used. I guess unless they use it on themselves, but that's obviously they're doing this in the role of physician, not in terms of patient. So what does this new ruling actually mean? Okay, so first of all, if there are states who do have anti-abortion laws, where there's complete restriction from day one or at 6 weeks, they can still stop the selling of these medications from pharmacies within their states. Okay, but the pills can now be sent from other states. Okay. Now, typically speaking, one has to have a license in a state in order to that the state the patient is in to do it. But most states that have legal abortion have put specific protections in place for those doctors if they do order something or mail it from a pharmacy into that other state, because it can't get it there in their pharmacy. But there are mail order pharmacies, of course. And basically, what these states that allow abortions have done is they've said, we are protecting you. Your medical license will not be in jeopardy in your home state if you do this, which of course that could be an issue, because breaking a law in one state from a medical perspective, a state could remove or could ban the medical license for that person or suspend the medical license for that doctor because of what happens in another state. And that's where the protection lies for the provider. Okay. However, things could change. Okay, because again, could there be some plaintiff who is able to establish how themselves could be hurt by the product, which of course I would argue, and don't use it. Right? It's informed consent. You decide whether you are going to take the medication itself. Things like that happen again with antibiotic reactions, all types of things, chemotherapy, where they could be dangerous, but the person themselves is consenting, weighing the risk versus the benefit. So while I guess a patient could develop standing on this, at the same time, they're consenting to do it. So they're saying, yes, I'm willing to take the risk because I have this outcome that I'm looking for. So that's why I think it could be very difficult for a patient to establish standing for that very reason, unless a doctor doesn't get consent. But of course, doctors get consent for these types of things. But of course, also a future president, an administration, could just carte blanche make an executive order. We're going to make this illegal. Or they can put somebody into the FDA who's in charge of that, who can then say new FDA policy says that it's illegal for it to be sold. Okay, even though it's out there, it's illegal to be sold. So this is not the last word. It could be changed. This could still be jeopardizing the overwhelming majority of ways that people who choose to terminate a pregnancy do so. Now, what's my take on this whole thing? So first of all, if you're one who believes that a woman's right for reproductive choice should be maintained or established if they're in a state where it's been taken away from them, vote. Vote for people who vote for these things, right? Vote for the senators, the congressmen. If you're within a state, if it's coming up, vote for state legislators who take your point, who allow that to happen. Okay. Of course, if you don't believe that should be done, you should, of course, vote for the people. I never tell people who they should or should not vote for. I'm just pointing out if you have a goal from a legislative perspective to have a certain belief of yours maintained, vote for that person. And of course, in many states, including here in Florida, where abortion is on the ballot, vote for that. Because again, even with this 6-week ban that we have currently in Florida, right? If somebody at 7 weeks, they can't use it. Right. So that's still a problem. But if abortion is allowed in Florida, then different forms of abortion can happen up until viability, which is usually around 24 weeks. Although this particular type of medicine would not be used in those situations, and that would be further along. And then there would need to be a procedure that's done in a safe environment by professionals who are doing this. Let's face it, if that's not allowed, people do things out of desperation, maybe not done in a legal way. And that's scary too. So anyways, that's my take on this. I hope that you've learned something about it, and hopefully the way that you believe will be taken care of through your actions. Have a nice day.